I assume no introduction is needed because as you can tell by the title we got a big one on our hands. A tier list video of me ranking every L1 for this bull cycle. We'll be considering things like how good the L1 is for its tech, the traction behind that tech, tokenomics and everything else you can think of, with the top priority as always being the types of returns I'm expecting from this moment on for each L1. Please note I say from this moment on and not the returns from its bottom to its top. With that being said, let's get started. I should also quickly mention how it'd be beneficial for you to subscribe to the channel. We're so close to that 10,000 mark, which is kind of insane. ETH I'm putting in the A tier. I don't want to spend too much time on this as there's no point of really explaining to you what ETH is. I will say however I think ETH's time is around the corner and futters should perhaps get prepared for switching their thesis. Only reason I don't put ETH in S is as far as returns you just won't really get them from here. Base case is probably a 3x, so we'll leave ETH in A. I'll only say this once overall. As a cryptocurrency, ETH is obviously S tier, so please understand the way in which I'm ranking these crypto for right now. BNB I'm putting in B. A huge shout out to the project though, as for a while there everyone was convinced this thing was going to blow up. Instead it's totally reversed, and is now less than 15% from making new highs. It may not make a 1300x like it did last cycle, but it's still doing its thing. Solana I'm putting as S tier, which may surprise you. It's the same exact thing as ETH. I don't want to waste time diving into Sol, you already know everything there is to know. I do want to point out though the meme coin endeavor on this chain has sort of turned it into the biggest casino in the world. We also got Fire Dancer coming up and a couple more things. But my main reason for this ranking is the fact there's a legitimate argument that Sol could still 5x or more from here. I'm not saying that's the case for me, in fact my sell targets are quite a bit lower. But the existence of the discussion at all for the fourth biggest crypto asset in the world with 70 billion in market cap is perhaps the most impressive thing we'll talk about today. Some are even arguing a 10x, but we'll have that discussion another day. Toincoin is tough, but I think I'll give it an A. Everything is primed for this thing to do very well and assert itself as a fundamental top 10 crypto by the end of this cycle. There are a few more questions it has to answer in comparison to Sol, which is why it doesn't get the S. Specifically now being able to act on the incredible arsenal it has. You have the users, the traction, the games, not coin, payments, the WeChat angle. Let's see if they get it done. Cardano is going in D tier. Perhaps this is a good time to discuss my bias on Cardano, which is I genuinely don't have any. ADA was one of my biggest winners last cycle, the face of altcoins after ETH. But let's just call a spade here. Cardano was a slow and methodical VC rug to help Charles fuel his jet and go on ocean deep water expeditions. The project has nothing going for it. It's on its last legs versus Bitcoin. If I had to guess, it does something like this, and this'll probably end up being its last cycle. Avalanche I'll go B. I think avax is good but nothing too special. The gaming move honestly made this thing go from C to B. I am bullish on avax. I think it has the potential to do well this cycle, but I'm not committed to that idea. I hold a small amount of avax, but one thing I should mention is this cycle is very important for Avalanche. It has to garner strong network effects by the end, because if not, and it just sort of stays floating, it may be in a lot of trouble going forward. Tron is so weird because say whatever you want, but it is very close to breaking its last cycle highs already. It has the most TVL after ETH. It has the most stable coin volume. It's cheap, fast, and convenient. I'll stick it in B for these reasons, but not necessarily because I expect it to offer great returns from this point on. Next up we got Near Protocol, which I'll be giving an A. Across the board, everything from TVL to volume and fees have been rampantly picking up. The Near community I always knew was strong, but in all honesty I did not expect for them to be going as hard as they are. I admit I faded their loyalty, and where once the idea of Near getting back to its 2021 highs was a tough discussion, it now almost seems that Near entering price discovery and making new highs is a lock. And don't think I wasn't going to mention its bullish AI narrative. It seems Near is leveraging this as its narrative this cycle, and for good reason. If you think about it, Near is sort of the category leader for AI layer 1s, meaning it goes without saying that if I'm Near, I'm putting my foot on the neck and trying to establish as much dominance as I can. A lot of things need to go right, but Near could mess around and get to even $100 this cycle. I don't think it will, but the potential is there. And while we're at it, why not bring up the biggest competitor to Near on that blockchain AI front, being of course ICP. Correct me if I'm wrong, but as far as the narrative, I think Near has the edge, but in terms of the tech, it's ICP leading that race with integrating AI into its blockchain. To make it clear, it's not that AI is embedded within the blockchain itself, it's instead qualities added around the blockchain, such as the introduction of what they call canisters, the architecture that allows AI models to leverage high scalability. volatility. And also the biggest thing obviously being the integration of AI and AI algorithms into ICP smart contracts. Look, I have to be honest, I'm not the biggest ICP bull. I think its tokenomics are horrid. NEAR is way better positioned to display positive price action over ICP. But ICP actually has the infrastructure where NEAR currently does not. For that reason I have to put it in the same bracket as NEAR, meaning ICP gets an A. Note it's only because of AI and how it'll be the biggest narrative this cycle that they both go in A, otherwise they'd both be in B. But while we're at it, might as well bring up the third installment in this AI L1 race, that of course being arweave. Arweave goes in the S tier, and before you freak out, hear me out. In terms of AI, I'd say it's somewhere between NEAR and ICP. The launch of the AO supercomputer will probably mean the introduction of AI into smart contracts. Except this time, unlike ICP, the parallel hyperprocessing of AO probably means more complex models being able to function. The fact that this hasn't quite happened yet could actually be more bullish than not. Remember, arweave was just your average run-of-the-mill old cycle token. It's because of the launch of AO which changed everything. I wouldn't be surprised if sometime during the bull they announced some big AI blockchain breakthrough that has huge parabolic effects on the price action of arweave, where when it goes live that marks its top or something. Furthermore, not even considering AI, AO within itself was a tremendous breakthrough for scalability overall. Arweave also has the whole data storage part, which on its own would have been enough to allow arweave to do decent this cycle. The tokenomics versus ICP and NEAR are also superior. Ultimately, the reason I give arweave an S is because I think it's primed to do very well this cycle. Of every project mentioned so far, it has the highest likelihood of still doing a 10x. HBAR I will put in the C tier, and at the same time algorand algod. I don't mind these enterprise chains per se, I think they have their product market fit, but the narrative has nowhere near the same hype it did last cycle. That said, I do think it's unfair to compare traditional measures like TVL or transactions, as again these aren't meant for retail. But with the recent BlackRock news, which ended up being not as bullish as it seemed at face value, where this has always sort of been a common occurrence with HBAR and announcements where they just never quite stick, these projects get these rankings as a result. That said, there is always the possibility for some insane news and partnerships to come out, and for these assets where they do very well as a result, which is why I hold a little bit of both HBAR and algorand. But that's not enough to give it higher rankings, as all in all it's looking rough. We'll move on to the move language duo next, being SUI and Aptos. SUI I'll put in the A and Aptos in B. SUI has the edge in every statistic across the board. It's a better experience. The market cap is lower, however the FDV is slightly greater too, with a steeper unlock schedule. You understand why I've placed SUI above Aptos, but why A and B respectively. I do feel at some point in this cycle we'll get the new L1 narrative, in which these two would be leading that pack. I am confident that this new cycle alternative L1 narrative won't do anywhere near as well as last cycle, so I don't exactly see them getting to 50 billion plus in valuation, but it still could put up quite a respectable run. While we're at it, might as well place Say Network as well, which we'll put in B, but it could also be A. Same thing, great project, it has everything there. But I think my ability to once again gauge how these new L1s will perform is honestly the weakest of any category. If I had to guess, I'd represent it with this scale here, where most bullish cases we get something like last cycle, and on the other end we get no performance whatsoever. I'd put it perhaps somewhere here as my base case. I've always thought for this cycle being a generic L1 just won't cut it, so I guess I'm sticking toward that. Kaspa I'm giving A. My only caveat here is price action from this point on. I've got my eyes glued on its BTC chart, as this honestly could be its inflection point for how much more it pumps this cycle. It's giving us monthly closes below the 50% drawdown level, which isn't ideal. On top of that, this double top formation isn't helping much either. KAS bulls would have to pull one out of the bag here and reclaim these highs quickly without breaking down any much lower. On the USD chart, however, price action is still fairly bullish, with us being respectably above that 50% drawdown and forming strong bullish divergence on the weekly. We'll see what occurs. Kaspa to $1 is certainly still on the table, but not as certain as we once thought. Everything else about the project though I love. It's almost a perfect crypto. Injective I feel the same exact way about as Kaspa, but this time it's breaking down pretty bad versus both Bitcoin and USD. Jason Pizzino highlighted exactly this a couple days ago, saying it's looking like Chainlink of last cycle, and how it could have peaked early because of its incredible weakness against Bitcoin, stating any closes under 3,000 sats and injective is probably done for this cycle. I highlighted this same exact thing last video, saying if injective can't bounce from here, and that too substantially, and then goes on to lose its low, it'd be breaking structures formed back since 2022. For those reasons, as much as I love injective, I'm putting it in the B tier. I still hold it, and don't get me wrong, I'm still bullish in the USD. But maybe those higher level targets of $100 plus might not be hit if this breakdown occurs. Celestia in pretty much the same exact position, and this example could perhaps be the best in showcasing why VCs are destroying a lot of projects this cycle. Modularity may not be the most fun topic, but its essence is pivotal for this space. Celestia is objectively one of the best modularity plays this cycle and we've ever had in crypto, period. But things aren't looking that good. Here's why. Celestia went live at $2. You'll notice that it didn't get the typical 40, 50, 60% dump that many new crypto do. Instead, it accumulated and pulled an easy 10x to $20. The reason is because of this. The unlocked parameters of TIA are quite unique. Thus far, most TIA was airdropped. No early TIA investors got their supply. Combine that with the intriguing airdrop incentives of staking TIA, it caught a strong bid. But here's the problem. In October, early investors start getting their TIA. The seed sale for TIA went at just under a cent. Let's say somehow, someway, TIA is the same price it was when it launched at $2. That's a 200x off the gate. So my question is, as good as a project Celestia may be, what's the incentive to continue holding? For comparison, if we look at these price aspects and the biggest modularity play of last cycle being Polkadot. Dot had an ICO in 2017 at 29 cents per token. When Dot went live in the summer of 2020, it was trading at $2, a lot like TIA, but this time being a 10x up instead of 200. I'll be putting TIA in the B tier for these reasons. Love the project. I still am bullish and hold my TIA, but not enough to put it in the A or even S where I otherwise would have. Ronin I'm plugging in B. I like the project a lot. It's the biggest gaming L1, and that too by quite the margin. Hosting two of the biggest games in the space being of course Axie Infinity, and the potential Axie of this cycle being Pixels. The reason I've been so bullish on Ronin for a long time is because of that infamous hack in March 2022 resulting in the loss of $600 million. I love when these worst case scenario type of situations occur, because if the project survives, that usually translates to very aggressive price action to the upside. That's exactly what happened with Sol and now Ronin. Ronin has already made new all-time highs and yet still sits at a 900 million market cap. You may be thinking, if all this is the case, why not have Ronin ranked higher? Well, it's because it's niche specific. The bull run targets are entirely dependent on how gaming as a sector performs this cycle. I am very bullish on gaming, but not as much as things like AI or memes. What's so great about gaming is I have always thought of it as its own economy within the crypto space. I think in the future, once it goes mainstream, it will entirely decouple from the rest of crypto and do its own thing, perhaps have its own cycle. We're still waiting for that time though. Until then, what I will say is, if gaming undergoes mass adoption this cycle, I think Ronin can very easy 10x, maybe even 20x in that environment. But once again, a lot of things have to go right for that, so we'll keep it at B. Rose output in C tier. I've always liked Rose, but the narrative just isn't a mainstream topic right now. I think it'll do decent at best. The product is good, but not too bullish on it. A0 I'll put in D. In terms of bullish price action, all we can rely on here is a Hail Mary. It has nothing going for it. The Bitcoin chart looks horrendous. It made new lows against its USD in April. A lot of A0 fans I know personally who kept shilling me this thing over the past 2 years have completely capitulated. It's in that position now where if it explodes, then it explodes. There's no analysis or insight here. It's simply luck, meaning it could of course happen. But if that's your hope here, then I'd instead just go to the casino. You'll find out a lot quicker. Zeta I'll give a C. I hold a small bag because I do think it's very interesting. It's a fascinating take on interoperability where all chains are already built in. Its consensus called Byzantine fault tolerance is also novel. With Zeta there's no real price analysis or anything of the sort. It's more a punt play for this cycle that I either make a 10-20x on or ride to zero. Qubic and spacemesh are also such, although these two I have more conviction on. Again, I'm not really checking these charts often or reading news every day. I think they're very captivating in their thesis, and plan to ride them for multiple returns or zero. Kujira I'll also give C, pulled a 10x in Q4 of 2023 but since then has been showing weakness. And then Flow EGLD and Tezos all get C, they have their niche communities and some decent developments, but just nothing too exciting. XRD gets D having made new lows 2 months ago. But there you have it, that's my rankings of L1's for this bull cycle when considering all there is. Remember, these are nothing but mere opinions, things could drastically change depending on developments going forward. But see if you have any similarities or differences in our way of thinking. We'll soon be doing tier lists for other narratives as well, like AI, gaming, and so on, so make sure you're subbed for all that. Sign up to a crypto exchange with link in description for cheap fees and big bonuses. And you'll see me in the next one.